I'm Sanjeev Mota from B&K Securities. Welcome all of you to another session of our ideation series. We have a very exciting young man today with us, Mr. Abhyuday Jindal. He is the managing director of Jindal Stainless. We also have Mr. Anurag Mantri from CFO from Jindal Stainless, and Mr. Gautam Chakravarti, investor relation. Heads our metal side, he's also here. You must be, I guess, the youngest person probably we are doing this show with. So,
Okay.
Welcome. And it's to have you here, and welcome to this Fireside
Yeah,
chat.
thank you. It's my pleasure to be here as well.
So, with the way we'll conduct it is, I'll first ask you a few questions which are more macro, more organizational kind of questions. Question, you can put it in the Q&A box and we'll try and make sure that we ask that question.
Perfect.
Great. So, Abhyuday, let's start with your journey. So, you've been, how many years have you been in the company now?
So, a part of Jindal Stainless, I've been in the company, you can say about 7 years now.
Right.
2000, towards end of 2014, I joined the company.
So, right in the middle of, all the chaos that was going on in the
Yes.
company. So, I
Yes.
guess you started with the deep end. But I must say that, given that you are from the OP Jindal family, you must be nerves of steel and blood of steel. So, of course, you have kind of managed this very well. So, if you can maybe just
With the
talk a bit
support, with
about.
the support that I got, we were able to manage it.
Right. So maybe, I guess you're still very young, but, and I'm sure, developing a leadership style. So maybe you can talk a bit about your leadership styles currently, like how it is, and, how have you kind of coped up over last few years as a leader?
So, it definitely, like you said, I was thrown in the deep end when it came about. And being an industry which is very complicated, there are many moving parts the whole time. I first wanted to have a complete understanding of the business. So I spent a lot of time in the factory. That was where my first year went because the heart of our business is at the plant. So understanding the technical nuances, understanding the challenges that we have in the company, in the organization. So that is how I started my journey. And again, one thing that I feel that being uh, very young with limited experience when I joined the organization, it I wanted to have a more collaborative approach. I obviously don't come with the experience of my father or my uncles who have been part of the industry for so many years. So my leadership or my the way I approached things was a more collaborative approach. It wasn't take one decision and push it down. It was more discussing with the senior team, understanding, getting all aspects, looking at it from different angles, and then taking an informed decision. So even now, the way I run the business, the way we're running the business, me along with our CXOs, we have regular interactions to see that which direction we want to take the industry, which direction we want to take our business, any new changes, any new challenges coming up. It's always discussed internally with a small group of people, and then we focus on execution. So that till now has been my leadership approach.
Right. But I guess as you move forward and with more experience, I get you'll start being more, taking more personal decisions, or you think you still like the collaborative
No,
way
I
of.
still, I still prefer to do a collaborative approach because I want to empower my people as well. So if all the decisions, if everything is taken by the topmost authority, then that empowerment doesn't happen. Then organization also moves very slowly because we all have limited time. We all have other things as well to do. So decisions slow down if it's all dependent on one person. So I still feel while going forward, it'll be more a collaborative approach from my side.
Sure. So just tell us about what you're learning. So as we discussed, you started in the deep end, and with CDR process going on and so on. What has been the key learnings, even either from what kind of debt company should have, to what kind of cost structure, to what kind of capital allocation and so on. So maybe you can talk a bit about what have you learned, and how do you plan to kind of take that forward.
So it was, I mean, one of the things that we really focused on was capital allocation, generating of cash, protecting our cash, and capital allocation. That was one thing that I learned very early on, that any business, anything that we want it to be sustaining, we want it to be a long-term play, then capital allocation is the whole thing. How we manage our cash and how we utilize that. When, looking like we mentioned again, when I joined the company, it wasn't through a good phase, and we had to look at each and every aspect of the business. So we looked at, like I said, capital allocation was very important. Supply chain was another big issue for us because we were totally dependent on imported raw material. We were importing from all parts of the globe, mainly from Europe and US. So supply chain was another very critical area that we worked on. How do we reduce our cash to cash cycle? How do we bring in our raw materials much closer so the volatility is taken care of? Uh, from the market side, then we created a lot of warehouses to supply just in time to the customer. So these were the major things that we looked at. Another thing that I'm currently focusing on is from our HR side, that being a part where most legacy driven companies, the focus, or manufacturing driven companies, the focus used to be very limited from the HR side. And that one thing, again, what I totally believe is, you're as good as your team, you're as good as the talent that you have in the company. So since I joined, we've really been trying to improve the talent. We've really been working on our HR processes. A lot of focus has been given to learning and development. So a lot of new programs, a lot of unique programs have been launched within the company. So these are the few factors, that we started looking at, which have yielded very good results till now.
Right. But given that the business can be pretty, cyclical at times, and so in terms of what is the right debt that you want to have, what is the right cost structure? Maybe if you can talk a bit about that, and what is your thoughts on that? Like, is there kind of a, have you decided that I won't leverage the company more than X,
So
or,
absolutely, we want to maintain the ratios. That is one thing that we discussed. We want to be debt to EBITDA not more than 1.5, debt to equity below 1, which we are at right now. So we're very happy that we've reached that level. Now the goal is to maintain it at this level. Any major capex, anything that we will do will be looked at our internal accruals first. We would not want to raise any more debt. So absolutely, the focus is on capital allocation, like I mentioned. It is on maintaining our ratios. Giving a exact debt figure will be a bit difficult because, like the company is growing, but maintaining the ratios is what we want to focus on.
sure.
Maybe
Yeah, so
Anurag can add something if I missed.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think so. As it's a very dynamic thing because and see now debt equity is under control now, but the debt EBITDA which will continue to keep a watch on.
hmm,
And we, as Abhyuday mentioned, is that since as the EBITDA moves up, accordingly the debt level gets set up, and to create more value for the stakeholder, we should be keep looking at the opportunities both in terms of the cost efficiency as well as the expansion opportunities. So we will be go with the very approached manner to address this so that our ratios remains under control while we continue to deliver the value for the stakeholders.
right. So, okay, and the second part is on the cost side, right? So the two things that kind of, and given that it's a global industry, and I guess lease cost matters quite a bit. What have you done about the cost structure? Like, how have you brought it down, or what is the process? Like, what are you thinking over the next few years?
So, no, very good question. And in our industry, I think reducing and working on the cost is a continuous, never-ending process. So, from a plant side, there are multiple avenues, multiple, processes that we keep working on, we keep improving. One simple example is less grinding. So now most stainless steel slabs have to be ground to get the right quality, to get the right surface finish. Now we're working on a concept where without grinding, as cast slabs, we can roll. Huge saving we get through that. Then another process is through less energy conservation. So we use liquid ferrochrome in our production in Odisha. So having liquid ferrochrome, the energy required to smelt it later on is much less, and that gives us huge cost efficiency. Another area, because 70% of our cost is the raw material. So that is one area we've done tremendous amount of work on. Our sourcing, like I was mentioning, we used to source from Europe, Canada, US mainly, and now it's completely moved 70% domestic and nearby sources. So that gives us much better efficiency. We used to buy from the biggest trading houses. We used to buy 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 tons in one go. Now from sourcing, we've completely changed that to buying from smaller suppliers, 100 tons, 200 tons, maybe sometimes even 50 tons. So that gives us tremendous cost benefit, reduces our cost, reduces the lead time. Uh, so there are multiple avenues from every angle where we're working on cost. Let me give some more examples. Sourcing is always a keen area. Like I said, liquid ferrochrome, stainless steel scrap has become domestic. MS scrap used to be completely imported. Now MS scrap is moving to domestic again. We are tying up with your car scrap companies that have started. That's become a new concept in the country, which we welcomed a lot. We worked on the policy as well. And we've tied up already with car scrapping companies. They'll be doing it exactly to our requirements, to our technical requirements, and supplying us just in time. So there are many factors that we have worked on because cost is a never ending process for us.
So if we're, let's say, the prices were to reach the last time when problems happened and prices were to come down, so would you say that your costs in absolute terms per kg or per ton, like how any kind of ballpark figure, how much would have come down by?
No, I've not really understood the question actually. When you
So I,
compare last time, what do you mean by that?
what I'm saying is, if you look at currently, obviously your margins are pretty good, and
Yeah.
you have this is a cyclical business in the end, and if the past cycle were to repeat, the question is, are you in a far better position from a cost
Oh,
perspective?
definitely. Yes, definitely. To maintain, see, definitely what we have been, talking and informing the market, even though we had a Q1 EBITDA per ton of close to 24,000, we are
Yeah,
still saying that 18 to 20,000 for the whole year average is what we're committing. We really feel that is doable.
right.
Despite if commodity prices comes down, it's the kind
Mhm.
of systems like we spoke about, we put in place the kind of marketing branding activities that we are putting in place currently right now, the kind of services that we have added, we will definitely be able to maintain our margins. Then we are not dependent on any one particular industry. So we have
Right.
more than 120 grades. We cater to all kinds of industries from auto, railway, ABC sector, process industries, pipes and tubes, utensils. So any
Mhm.
industry, anything that we see a dip coming in, we can increase our sales to the other side, to the other segments, other industries as well. Export is a big market for us. So
Right.
we are exporting to Germany, Italy, America, USA, basically all your highest quality, highest margin countries. So
Right.
anytime that we see again another dip coming in the domestic market, we can always increase our exports. So EBITDA per ton 18 to 20,000 for the whole year, and even in the coming years, we see that is quite possible and quite positive.
Sure. So am I understanding right that even in terms of value additions, you have added from a product portfolio, do you have now much more value added products also compared to what you had earlier?
Yes, definitely. We do have not more value added, we are increasing the capacity in a value added segment. So,
Good.
like in our Hisar facility, we're expanding our special products division. So, we're doubling our precision strips, which goes into medical, which goes into electronics, which goes into high-end automotive. We're doubling that capacity, we're increasing our blade steel capacity. So we're going into more value-added products. We're looking at high alloy segments, high nickel segments, copper alloys. So we are adding our value chain more and more because, like you see, we're expanding Odisha. Odisha is where we're going to be adding more stainless steel consumption. More of our major melting will happen in the Odisha facility. Hisar, we still want to maintain, but the way we want to increase in Hisar is through value-added segments. So we're
Right.
supplying to medical, pharma, we're supplying to defense as well now.
Sure. So as a percentage of total sales today, like what would value added be? Again, maybe it's a loose definition, but
Yeah,
um,
because value added, we'll have to define, value addition. If we talk in terms of high EBITDA numbers, then it'll
yeah,
be to the tune of about 15 to 20%, you can say.
right. And that will continuously improve as you
That will
set up more.
continuously increase. That is the focus of Hisar facility. So that will
Right.
continuously increase.
Sure. So before I come to stainless steel industry and the prospects, just one more thing on the, going back to the restructuring part. So we had first we had a demerger, and now we are remerging. What's the thought? Like one, I guess it was partly to do with the banks, that the whole
Yes.
demerger. But if you can maybe just explain to some of us who don't know fully about the history, that why the demerger and then why the merger again.
So I think Anurag was handling that whole matter. I think he would give a better explanation.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think good question, Sanjeev. So the demerger was at the time when Odisha was not at the full capacity utilization.
Right.
So it was a greenfield project, a very large project as compared to the existing Hisar plant. So till the time, understand that when the greenfield project is not reaching to a even capacity utilization of 70-75%, it becomes challenging. Even the fixed cost absorption, the cost addition, it was highly leveraged expansion. So that time, from prudent financial perspective, it was necessary that we have a two separate entities, which
Right.
also it was the bank suggestion, which was the right thing to do also, because so that your operating entity remain insulated and you focus completely on the different capital structure for the capacity which was put up as a greenfield project till the time you reach the capacity.
Sure.
Now, why remerger is because that time when we demerged, the capacity utilization of Odisha was less than 50%. Now,
Right.
when we have reached to a capacity utilization of more than say 80-90%, now both the plants are at the same footing. They are both operational plants. Now, obviously, to bring the better synergies, better balance sheet strength, it's better to have only one operation. So it was a different circumstances earlier, and with the transformation of the business and the Odisha plant ramp up, it has become a completely different circumstances now.
Right.
No, it was a big success story, Sanjeev, definitely,
Yeah.
because at the time when we did the demerger, the whole NCLT concept, IBC concept was coming up, and it came at the right time for us, and we were one of the only companies in this space that have come out of CDR, have completely, turned around our story. So it was a
Right.
great process or a great step that was taken by our company and with the support of our banks. But now we feel that the company is completely out of all its financial situations. We are out of CDR. And to be a one solid entity, to be one of the top 10 stainless steel players in the world, to have our suppliers, our stakeholders look at us as a large entity, as a large corporate, we feel that merger is the right step right now.
Right. So what will merger do in terms of overall, in terms of cost saving, in terms of, what
So
else does merger
So,
achieve? Yeah.
a lot of balance sheet benefits we will end up seeing. That will be one of the major benefits that will come. Then, because of having two separate companies and a lot of legal stipulations were there as well, which now we can do away with. We had, for example, had to open multiple warehouses for two
Hmm.
separate legal entities. We had to have two separate, warehouses, which now we will do. We have, like, let's say, around 18 across the country, which that we can squeeze to about 8 or 9. Logistics to be signed, all our logistic contracts were separate. Now being one large entity, we can get better pricing, better negotiating power. From cost perspective at a plant level, like I mentioned, it's a continuous process. So that never stopped because of merger or demerger, but a lot of external factors, a lot of stakeholder benefits we will see after the merger. Anurag, anything you can add to that?
Yeah, no, so I think as you mentioned is that one is that the large one balance sheet and one company synergies, and especially in the entire supply chain, sales side, as Abhyuday mentioned, the operational side, we'll see a bigger synergies going forward, and both are complementing actually. If you see, Hisar is focusing on special grades,
Hmm.
while Odisha entire facility has been built one of the lowest cost producer in the world, which can produce volumes. So I think their cash flow overall one pool of cash. Hisar is a limited with the landlocked plant. It's a limited opportunity to expand the volume that way. So we'll continue to focus on the very value added product. The cash can very well be utilized effectively with the because we have a multiple opportunities in Odisha. So for increasing the value of the stakeholder, it will be one pool of cash which will be utilized very wisely to balance the lowest cost producing part as well as the specialized part. So that will bring the very good synergies both in terms of the P&L as well as balance sheet side for us.
Sure. Great. Let's move to stainless steel, and what are the key drivers? Obviously, we have seen over the years that's gone from just, kitchen utensils to now a large part is not kitchen utensils. But in terms of key driver going from here, like things like railways and so on. So if you can talk a bit about that.
So, I mean, it's the metal itself that is the key driver. That the properties that the metal has, it's corrosion free, it's higher strength to weight ratio, better heat treatment properties, better durability as compared to carbon steel as well as aluminum. So the material itself has tremendous benefits. The key drivers I would say is that now our country is becoming or recognizing stainless steel other than a utensil made product. We're looking at world examples. Now, one big concept that the government started was life cycle costing. Before any material is selected for any government project, you need to calculate the life cycle costing. And once that is done, stainless steel always is a clear winner. Now, exactly like you said, railways. Maybe 15 years back, all coaches were mild steel, cotton steel, carbon steel. Now they've switched over to stainless steel. For the next 20 to 30 years, you will not need to replace these coaches. Just limited maintenance will be required. Another example is from the pipe and tube sector. Earlier you would see most places having carbon steel pipes painted, which would start corroding, which would start rusting. Now, all over, not only in urban cities, but also in rural places, rural cities, towns, stainless steel pipe and tubes have taken a big concept. So it is the inherent property of the material itself, which are key drivers, corrosion, like I mentioned. Even in our factories, we have seen, and which we're working on a case study on this, that our roof sheds, where there is pickling, where there is a lot of chemicals being used, every 1.5 to 2 years, they had to be replaced, and it's a very cumbersome process. It happens at a height. There are safety issues that happen. Production has to be closed at that point. It's something that nobody wants to incur. We ourselves to have a proof of concept started converting all our roofs to SS, which has worked beautifully. We started this journey 5 years ago. Not a single of our roofing where we put SS has been replaced or changed till now. So it is these properties of the metal. Then, like I was saying, the world example, India is at about 2.6 kg per capita consumption. World average is 6 kgs. Then if we move into more of your developed countries, Singapore, South Korea, Japan, it's 28 to 30 kgs per capita. They have realized the benefit. They are moving complete plumbing into stainless steel. Again, to prevent corrosion, to prevent any kind of water loss. And Jindal Stainless is doing a lot of this to educate the market. We have started college courses. So that was one gap that I saw once I joined the company, that engineering colleges, metallurgy colleges, architectural colleges, there was practically zero focus on stainless steel. So now, us as an organization, in almost 20 colleges, which is increasing every year, we started stainless steel elective courses. So it's a 3-month course where they also get to visit the factory. So if it's an architectural college, they get to visit our subsidiary, which is JSL Lifestyle, which focuses on kitchens, elevators, escalators. So they get to visit that unit. Engineering, metallurgy, students, they get to visit our mother plant. We started internships for these people as well, so that they experience stainless steel. Even if they don't join our company, they can go into some other industry, some other organization, but they would be ambassadors, or they would have some more knowledge of stainless steel. Then we started fabricator training. That has really been appreciated. We have been qualified by National Skill Council as well now. So they are sponsoring our training events. The gap that again we saw, that over the years, fabricators knew very well how to work with carbon steel. But as soon as it came to stainless steel, the tool requirements, the process requirements were different. So we started this journey also about 3 years back, and we have trained already close to 16,000 fabricators across the country. There was a bit of a slowdown because of COVID, so we couldn't do the physical training. Online, we started online, but it's not as effective as obviously being physically present. So now again, from June onwards of this year, that has been reinitiated. So a lot of factors, a lot of things that we are doing to support the growth of stainless steel, plus the education, the kind of property the metal has, people are now accepting it. Bridging is another big thing that I forgot to mention. Now, railways is moving. They've realized after all the incidents that happened over the last 5, 6 years, where loss of life, bridges have collapsed, they are moving into stainless steel bridges all across the country now. So that's a big, I would say, breakthrough for stainless steel. First one is going to be coming up in Mumbai and Bhayandar by December this year. So that's a very big concept. That's a very good push that stainless steel is receiving in the country now.
Right. So given that optimism, what do you, in next 5 years, if I were to look, what would be your capacity uh, for stainless, and would you also do anything else other than what you're doing? Any
So,
other? Yeah.
so we're very, very bullish on stainless. Like I mentioned, we're only at 2.6 per capita. Just to reach the world average, to grow by 1 kg, the stainless steel requirement is almost 1 million tons. So there is enough demand that we foresee. There is enough requirements. We feel actually we are maybe 1.5, 2 years behind our expansion. If we were ready with our expansion today, we would be absolutely in line with the market needs. So we're actually behind. We're trying to expedite our expansion because of that reason.
Right. So, what would be your, let's say around 3 years down the line or 5 years down, what would be the capacity?
So capacity as of now, after our expansion, we would in total be almost a 3 million ton player, 2.1 million in Odisha and about 0.8, 0.9 million in Hisar. So we would be a 3 million ton player, and our 5 year horizon is to take this up to 5 million tons.
Right. So because Orissa, you still have, I think you can go
Odisha,
up
we
to.
still have land available. Odisha, we still have land available. So any expansion that would happen in Odisha further.
Right. And the cost of expansion is going to be obviously much less than what your first
Yes.
was, right?
Much less. Already, just to give you an example, to set up Odisha, 1 million ton cost us almost 9,000 to 10,000 crores. Now, to expand it from 1 million to 2.1 million, it's only going to cost us 2,500 to 3,000 crores. So, at 1/3 the cost, we'll be doubling our capacity. And
Right.
most of this will be through internal accruals.
Any other material that you'll get into, or this is right now?
Not on the cards as of now. We are definitely always looking out for further future opportunities. Carbon steel is possibly the closest industry that we can get into. We have all the capabilities, we have the facilities available. But as of now, we still are quite bullish on stainless, and we would want to grow in that.
Sure. So before I hand over to Rajesh, just one thing, in fact, there's a question that has come, and there was a clarification on the merger. I think there are a couple of entities. One is JUSL, I think, and one which are not being considered right now. What are the roles of those, and why are they not being merged?
Yeah,
See,
Anurag would.
Let me answer that question, Sanjeev. So JUSL and JCL, those are associated companies and they have a very different model. So Jindal Coke Limited has a very different model. Actually, they are only 25% produce of JCL. Today is actually consumed by JSL. Otherwise, rest is actually sold out of the market. Besides that, we use the coke oven gas from JCL. So these two companies have their own standalone robust model. In the entire process, obviously, the debt was structured in a manner where there was a longer term debt and the longevity of debt happened in these companies. So they will remain as a separate entity because there is no as such interconnections. There are dependencies on like JUSL is surely which the hot strip mill, but it's a very well defined process. What when we went for a demerger process, all the tolling charges and everything was discussed and approved by the shareholders as well as lenders accordingly. So there's no plan as of now. Those models are running well. They have a different debt structure which is completely run very perfectly with the lenders. So there's no plan of remerging these because this company will then focus on the core stainless steel value added and the end products.
Right. Sure. Rajesh, over to you.
Thanks, Sanjeev. Hi, good afternoon once again. I think I have a question relating to some recent developments going on in China. Does the situation rattle the management at all, or do you think that it is something not to be worried about in terms of, say,
There are a
we've seen in the
lot of
past, right?
information comes
Yeah.
out of China. So if you can just be a little more specific, then I can
No,
answer.
I'm saying we've seen in the past that suddenly China becomes a large net exporter, right?
Hmm.
Which we've not seen for the last 1.5 years. So that situation tends to rattle the steel industry. Maybe stainless steel lesser, but still some impact may come if China suddenly starts to sell a lot of their products outside their own market, given
No,
the own
definitely,
challenge.
absolutely.
So
It
does
does.
the
It does have
situation?
a negative impact on sentiments because yes, China does, dump the material. They don't try to compete.
Right.
There are two, three ways that we are combating this. One is that firstly, just to make clear, China, what they dump into India and stainless steel is an area where Jindal Stainless is not very active. So they are focusing on the absolute low-end market utensil segments where we maximum 3 to 5% is where our pie is. So that is not a big threat for us. Secondly, what we're working on is BIS standards. So that is something that we feel that if the country develops more quality control standards, more BIS standards, which already they have worked on, that becomes another deterrent for these Chinese companies. Because actually the ones that dump are your small players, not the big ones. The Bao Steels, the AK Steels of the world are very easy for us to compete with because they have your standard practices, processes, and they take up your BIS certificates. The smaller companies, they really don't, or it takes them a much longer time to, apply for BIS to get the approvals done. Secondly, there's a huge anti-China sentiment also that's playing around right now. And quality, that is where, we can always and always compete with Chinese. Anywhere where quality comes into play, over Chinese, over most European companies also, our customers prefer Jindal material. So that is why China is a threat. I will never say that it is not a threat, but there are a lot of processes and there are a lot of measures we've put in place to combat it.
So is it right to say that the product mix at this stage is different from what it used to be 6 years ago, to
Yes.
warrant that that threat is not no longer that big a threat? Or could you elaborate a little bit on that?
No, absolutely. So maybe 6 years ago, the focus used to be on 300 series and 200 series, almost 50%, 40%, and then maybe 10% used to be 400 series. 400 series is somewhere where there is no nickel at all. Now, today, if you look at today, our mix is almost 40% 300 series and 3200 and 30 400 series. So that has been a strategy of the company. And going further, we further want to increase 400 series because having no nickel, major raw material being ferrochrome, and Odisha factory being very, very I would say, in the right fit, being in the ferrochrome belt, using liquid ferrochrome, we will actually be we are one of the lowest cost producers of 400 series. That is an area where the company wants to further grow, further increase. Maximum dumping that is happening from China is in 200 series. So that is an area where, as an organization, as a company, we are also reducing further. So that way we are able to combat with, any Chinese company or anybody else coming into the country.
So this
Just to add,
denickel,
Rajesh,
yeah,
6 years back, obviously then import threat on our portfolio, on our sales mix, probably was almost on a 60% of our sales mix could have got impacted with these type of things. Today, as Abhyuday mentioned, because since the series mix as well as the approval based segments consumptions like auto, railway, which were very small earlier, now their demands are also increasing and their overall requirements are increasing, which is our key area. Most of the requirements we are capturing those markets. So almost 90% plus of those markets are being captured in India by us. So which has led to a complete change. So today the segment which can get impacted is actually less than 15%. It's a worst case scenario if all the dumping starts happening. So both things are happening. Our series makes our consumption pattern of the country, approval based, the quality consciousness for the utilization. So all these are putting together in our favor.
right. So is it suffice to say that denickelization is a theme that the company is actively pursuing, and the nickel heavy component of your portfolio is going to go down progressively, and that's going to be salutary for our margins because
So
we buy
that,
for the
that
nickel.
is a strategy. We will never be able to move away from 300 series. That is the bread and butter of most stainless steel companies. But yes, we do definitely want to increase our pie to 400 uh, in less nickel dependent grades. That is the strategy. That is what we are working towards. But our dependence on 300 series will never go down.
Right, but you perceive the 400 series to become, say,
To pick up,
maybe
yes,
close to
absolutely.
40% over a period of time.
Absolutely. 40 to 50% almost.
Okay. And in the ferrite grades, you don't anticipate that any company can come and set up a plant here and start off as competition? Say,
No, so, there have been companies that have tried multiple times, not only in stainless steel, but in steel as well. And setting up greenfield capacities in our country is very difficult, very challenging. There was a Chinese company that entered Gujarat market, but for the last 2 years, it's completely been closed. So, people have looked at it, people have tried, but the kind of nuances that our country has, it's very difficult for them to come in and set up.
so what would be the viable capacity size for a greenfield player to enter this market? Will it be over a million tons or?
See, to get economies of scale in our kind of industries, it has to be over 1 million tons. Without that, your cost, your investment will not make sense. Secondly, you need raw material security. As of now, if we look at today, there are no ferrochrome mines available, and there are no ferrochrome mines going to be available in the next upcoming years. So from that angle, anybody looking at India as a lucrative market for stainless steel is very doubtful.
Yeah, that was my next question on the raw materials actually. So ferrochrome you've answered. I had a question on the scrap because the scrap availability and the pricing is also something which will affect our margins since we
Correct.
have become dependent on scrap increasingly over the years. So I would like to hear your thoughts on that as to how we can keep this scrap pricing under control and how confident are we of that?
So, we are the biggest consumers of scrap in the country, mild steel scrap and stainless steel scrap. So, we kind of dominate the market. What we have also done is that we have opened scrap yards all across the globe now. So, we have a scrap yard in Middle East, we have a scrap yard in Thailand, and also we are planning to open a scrap yard in Eastern Europe. These are going to be catchment areas where, like I was mentioning, if you deal with the smaller players, the smaller parties, we always end up getting a better price, better realization. So by opening these yards, we're going to be sourcing scrap locally. These are nearby countries, Middle East, In Dubai we have one, and in Thailand, like I mentioned, with travel time is less than almost 10 to 15 days. So that is really creating a lot of benefit for us. We are increasing that capacity of our scrap yards every year as well. Plus, domestically, we are controlling the full market. Like I said, we've already tied up with a lot of these scrap traders. Scrap traders, I mean the people who have set up your scrapping units. So, already tied up with them in and around our factories. Some of them want to come and set up. Then we're working with all our major suppliers to increase their local capacity as well. By that way, they will be taking on all the burdens of any nickel volatility, any long lead time, any cash flow issues. So that will be all pushed onto our suppliers. That way, raw material security is one of the biggest risks, one of the biggest factors for any steel company. And a lot of measures have been put in place, like I just mentioned.
Right. And what determines pricing in this industry other than nickel, of course? Is it going to be ferrochrome or in the longer run more than nickel for us? Because
No, it will be a mix of both. Like I said, nickel we will never be able to move away from. So
Hmm.
it will stainless steel mainly governed by raw material prices. So ferrochrome and nickel are the main two factors I would say that govern our industry.
And what kind of savings will we incur when we get our own chrome ore from next year, hopefully? Uh,
So almost if I just give you a rough figure, by mining and utilizing almost a benefit of 6,000 rupees per ton we should get.
and that will happen from FY23 as per your calculations?
No, FY23, the mining will start. So, it takes its own time and depending on all the clearances, it will start from FY23. We won't get the complete consumption then, but whatever we're able to extract on that, we will get 6,000 rupees per ton benefit.
So when you give the guidance of 18,000 or 20,000 rupees per ton, you factor in all these factors, the stainless steel price volatility, the cost savings, the scrap, everything is taken into consideration, right?
Everything is taken into consideration.
And that is what a optimistic figure or a pessimistic figure or a probabilistic figure.
That's a realistic figure. We as an organization have been known to be very conservative, but we see that that's a realistic figure that we can achieve. Because we've seen, Rajesh, which you might have known, we've seen times where we had an EBITDA average per ton average of almost 8 to 10 rupees.
Right.
So that is a area that we don't forget. We are aware that we face certain challenges, but looking at what the market is growing, the kind of processes, systems we put in place, I think 18 to 20 is quite achievable.
So let me put the question another way. Which are the biggest threats or risk factors you perceive? Because currently our EBITDA margins are much higher. So I was wanting to know that what propels you to think that we can fall 6,000-7,000 rupees lower or even less than that.
So
What kind of factors can cause that?
it is definitely one factor which would be only a limited short term would be commodities crashing. If nickel takes a big beating because of the cyclical nature or till we are able to fall in line with the sourcing, then at that point we could see a little hit, but that would only be for the short term, till again it stabilizes. That is one factor. Imports is the only other threat that I can say. Imports is possibly the only threat which gives negative sentiments. It does not impact our sales as such. Our volumes will still continue to be sold, but it could have a negative impact on our margins in terms of sentiments. But again, that is a short term. It will not be for a very long term.
And another question I had was on power because stainless steel through the EAF route consumes more power than carbon steel. So, what are we doing in terms of sourcing of coal or getting access to uh, other forms of renewable energy in terms of these things?
So, I mean, apart from what the obligations are there, we are already tying up with some solar purchasing units to purchase that. Then there is also other renewable hydropower or wind power. So as of now, we are just meeting our requirements of what the government has set out. We are now completely waiting and watching to see what the way the world is moving. Like there is an organization in Europe, SSAB, which is looking at producing carbon steel only through clean hydrogen route. It's going to be expensive, it's going to take time, but we're waiting and watching. We're looking at all factors of what the way the industry is working. There are things that companies are announcing, just to be not to throw any negative light on them, but like Tata Steel announced that they'll be moving all their trucks to EVs, which is very limited in terms of the nature of our business. That is going to be not even 1%. So these factors also we're looking at. We work very closely with our other group companies. Tata Steel is right next door to us. So in terms of environment and safety, there's always a close coordination, close interaction with them. Uh, also from coke oven, a lot of polluting activities happen from coke as well. So we're putting in all the pollution saving metrics. We're investing, even though it's a cost for the company, we're still investing in that, so we can be a zero discharge plant. The mission and the vision is to go towards that, but we don't want to increase our costs unnecessarily. So completely in line with government regulations and keeping a watch on what is happening internationally. Anything that we see is beneficial to the company, beneficial to our organization, we will definitely implement that.
So for the expansion in Odisha, we'll still be reliant on thermal power from coal supplied
Yes.
by Coal India?
Yes. Maximum you can say will be dependent on thermal power.
So that's something you don't want to change immediately in terms of the coal supply from Coal India.
No, I mean, I think we have not seen any supply issues the way other companies have faced, and we are as of now 100% dependent on Coal India. But anytime there are certain supply issues coming, or we foresee that, we can import from Indonesia, Australia, which we used to in the past as well. So earlier we used to work on a 70-30 blend. Now we're 100%. Anytime there are supply side issues, then we can look at importing. Secondly, now we're also always looking out for certain assets in terms of coal or iron ore assets also. We are now in the market. So anything that looks lucrative for us or meets our size requirements, we can go and acquire that. But as of now, I think we are comfortable, and our expansion, we will still be dependent on thermal.
Right.
It's
In
more
terms of,
it's more
yeah.
talk in the industry than actual on ground implementation.
Okay. And in terms of the overall pricing strategy, we've seen a number of the global players, especially in aluminum, they have a hedging strategy against the price fall. But we've not seen Jindal Stainless actually adopting such hedging strategies. Is that a conscious strategy, or I mean, do you think that something better works for you? Because since you're a converter, I would assume that a certain amount of hedging would be beneficial for your cause.
So
So,
there is a certain amount of hedging. The only thing that we are not hedging as of now is actually nickel. And that is a very, I would say, uh, nobody in this world till date has been successful in that till now. And we suffered in the past. One of the main reasons that we went into CDR almost in 2009 was because of hedging of nickel. So since that, we have realized, and we're working on more of a natural hedge. So whatever we are buying, we sell immediately. So that is the way we're trying to hedge most of our raw material side, and maybe from forex side, Anurag can maybe touch upon a bit.
So, as Rajiv, basically, both ways we are maintaining largely a natural hedge sort of a strategy. So, nickel side, as Abhyuday mentioned, is that see, if we start doing the hedges, typically it will take at least the hedging cost. If we do the full hedges based on the, it will be not less than 2 to 3%. So you can understand in the tight EBITDA margin business, it doesn't make sense for them. So to counter that, what we have done, as Abhyuday mentioned, was the natural hedge with nickel in and nickel out. So today we manage monitor our nickel exposure on an overnight basis. So whatever nickel goes out of our system through sales mode, and whatever nickel becomes, we keep tying up from our purchase route. we have set up a band that okay, and we have disclosed this in our calls also, that this is the band which will be operating always. And the moment it happens that suppose we have a more high nickel sales at some days or some week, immediately we stop buying the nickel bearing material or nickel bearing scrap for some days, so that we remain in that, and that's how we actually have narrowed down our nickel risk exposure. Forex we hedges again mostly on a natural hedge principle, but managing that, okay, our export and import overall, we became a net premium gainer. So that because we have export, consistent export, and almost sort of a long-term sort of committed exports on a year-on-year basis, as well as similar thing is for our import side also. So we first match on a natural hedge basis, and that basis we then do the forex hedging, keeping in mind that overall we have a premium neutral situation.
See,
Thanks. I think
there is a question on nickel, by the way, which maybe I can ask that question right now. Long back, you had signed an MOU with Bosco for exploring nickel in Indonesia. I think that may have expired, but are there any such plans?
Absolutely. We are looking at certain plans. It's still very early to mention, but we are looking at, since we already have a presence in Indonesia, we have a subsidiary. So we have a setup, we have a team available there. And mainly we are looking at Indonesia only for our nickel expansion, but nothing on the cards as of now. It still will take some time.
Sanjeev,
Rajesh, you have any?
you can, I am done. You can round up.
I guess just one last question from my side. We talked about the long-term plan. From a group perspective, given that each companies are reasonably well defined and what you all do, is there things that you can and you cannot do, like as an understanding, as a tacit understanding within the group?
No, absolutely. Each company is run absolutely separately without any intervention or interaction, between the brothers, and the family keeps interacting. It's a more collaborative approach. So that if
Right.
there is, for example, there is acquisition coming up and it makes more sense for one brother or one company to go for it, then they are always given the first right. And
Right.
if they are not interested or they are not in a position to take over or bid, then only the other company goes for it. So it's a collaborative approach. But even if we still want to compete for the same asset, then we are still open to doing that. There is no rules or restrictions from that angle.
Sure. So
But we
basically,
always
just
try to help each other out. It is a very close-knit family. So we always try to help each other out.
no, I think this has been one of the model families of how family distribution has taken
Yeah, it's
place. We
all
have
credit
seen
to my
series of
grandfather
disasters.
and to my
Yeah,
father and his brothers. Absolutely.
that's right. Yeah, no, I think you are one of the few examples of how families have actually stayed together. So this is really great. Yeah. So I think just to summarize from what I'm understanding, you are looking at good stainless steel demand. You're looking at capacity expansion over next 5 years. Cost of expansion would be lower than what was in the past. Debt side, you are saying that you'll manage the debt at lower than 1:1. Would you need capital for the capital to grow? Would you need equity capital to grow to that capacity, or you think it can be managed?
No, I think
Uh,
we're quite okay right now. Anurag, from your side?
Yeah, I think current capacity expansion, we are quite comfortable. We don't need any new capital infusion at this stage.
sure. So given that, and given you are going slightly more value added on one side, reducing your costs, so the margins that you talked about, even that's achievable. So look like exciting times.
No, it's very,
So
very exciting. I mean, after a long time, it has been an exciting time for us. And, we've definitely learned the hard way, which is why we are putting all measures in place not to go back into that. That is
right.
something that now it's a growth phase for the company. It is something that we want to create value for all our stakeholders. I
Yeah.
know many shareholders have spoken to me in the past, and that is now the key focus, that we want to be one of the well-known manufacturing companies in India and the world. So I hope with all your support, next few years you will be seeing that.
No, Viday, I guess, yes, all the very best for that. You're still very, very young, so I'm sure long, long way to go.
Thank
And
you.
wish you
No, thank
all
you
the
so
best.
much, and would be more than happy to do more of these fireside chats or connect one-to-one also. So
Yeah, no,
glad
absolutely.
that you
Yeah.
know that.
No, we'll look forward to doing this more on a more regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you so
you
much.
everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Thank